The year was 1941. The world stood on edge, America still reeling from the Great Depression, the storm of war growing louder each day. And then, in a darkened theater, a thunderous voice cut through the silence, faster than a speeding bullet.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
More powerful than a locomotive.
More powerful than a locomotive.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
With that triumphant fanfare, audiences saw him. Superman, alive in motion, soaring across the screen. For many children, it was the first time they had ever seen a comic book hero move. And for animation itself, it was a revolution. This is the animated history of Superman. A history not just of a character, but of the world's changing vision of heroism. Every decade, every series, every animated film reflected the struggles, fears, and hopes of its time. Superman is more than ink and paint. He is a cultural mirror. It all began with the Fleischer Studios. Max and Dave Fleischer were legends of animation, known for Betty Boop and Popeye. But when Paramount approached them to animate Superman, Max tried to dodge the job. He thought it would be too difficult to make believable. So he gave Paramount a ridiculous budget quote, hoping they'd refuse. To his horror, they said yes. And so, with budgets nearly 10 times higher than a typical cartoon, about $50,000 per short, the Fleischers set to work. The result was astonishing. 17 animated shorts between 1941 and 1943, each a miniature film noir in motion. Towering Art Deco skylines, daring angles, shadows that stretched like cathedral windows. Superman wasn't just drawn, he was mythologized. And here's the twist. It was the Fleischers who gave Superman the power of flight. In the comics, he only leapt 1/8 of a mile, but animating that looked clumsy. So the animators asked, why not let him fly? DC agreed, and history was rewritten. At first, Superman fought mad scientists, robots, and natural disasters. But after Pearl Harbor, the tone shifted. The shorts became propaganda, with Superman battling tanks, bombers, and grotesque caricatures of Axis soldiers. For American children, Superman wasn't just a hero. He was part of the war effort. Yet the magic couldn't last. By 1943, Paramount had taken control from the Fleischers, moving production to famous studios. The budgets shrank, the animation stiffened, the stories dulled. Superman's first golden age in animation had ended. For 2 decades, he was largely absent from screens. But in 1966, he returned, this time to television. Filmation's The New Adventures of Superman brought the Man of Steel into living rooms. Each episode was short, simple, and cheaply made. Animators reused flying poses and sliding backgrounds. But for kids, it didn't matter. They had Superman on Saturday mornings. The show even brought back Bud Collyer, the radio Superman, whose voice trick was legendary. As Clark Kent, he spoke high and mild. As Superman, his tone dropped, steady and commanding. To children, it was the sound of transformation. But television had strict censors. Superman couldn't throw a punch at a living person. He mostly threw robots, monsters, or beams of energy. The Man of Steel had been declawed. Yet to the kids watching, he was still larger than life. And then, in 1973, Superman gained teammates. Hanna-Barbera launched Super Friends, with Superman as the leader of a Saturday morning Justice League. For over a decade, in various versions, Superman fought alongside Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman, with new sidekicks like the Wonder Twins. These cartoons were often more about lessons than action. One week, Superman might stop Lex Luthor. The next, he might explain recycling, teamwork, or honesty. Animation was cheap, often awkward. But for a whole generation, Danny Dark's booming Superman voice became definitive. He wasn't edgy or conflicted. He was a dependable father figure, the ideal of truth and justice. By the late 1980s, though, the world had changed. Audiences wanted depth. In 1988, Ruby Spears released a short-lived Superman cartoon that tried something new. It adapted the Man of Steel comic reboot by John Byrne, modernizing Clark's adventures. But the real innovation came in the Superman Family album, a series of shorts showing Clark's boyhood in Smallville. For the first time in animation, we saw Superman grow up, face bullies, learn humility, and carry his parents' lessons into adulthood. This attempt to humanize him was ahead of its time, and would echo later in Smallville and other reimaginings. But the true revolution came in 1996. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini had already transformed Batman into a cultural icon with Batman, the animated series. Now it was Superman's turn. Superman. The animated series blended classic Art Deco style with futuristic sci-fi, creating a world that was both timeless and modern. This Superman was noble, but not invincible. He bled. He doubted. He wrestled with anger, love, and loss. The series redefined villains too. Brainiac was no longer just a green alien, he became a Kryptonian AI, forever linking him to Superman's origins. Lex Luthor, voiced by Clancy Brown, was a calculating businessman, charming and terrifying at once. Many fans still call him the best Lex ever portrayed. But the show's boldest achievement was Darkseid. Their rivalry was operatic, ending in one of the most shocking episodes of the era, where Superman is brainwashed into conquering Earth. The series showed not just Superman's strength, but the terrifying danger if he ever lost his way. This era expanded into Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Here, Superman was part of a team, and his flaws became storylines. In one arc, an alternate universe Superman kills President Luthor and rules the world. The warning was clear. Superman's morality is all that stands between savior and tyrant. That tension, between hope and fear, defined the 2000s. In 2007, DC began releasing direct-to-video animated films. The first was Superman, Doomsday, a bold attempt to adapt the Death of Superman storyline. It launched an entire era of animated films. Soon came All-Star Superman, Grant Morrison's poetic farewell to the hero. Then Superman vs. the Elite, a sharp commentary on violent modern antiheroes versus Superman's classic morality. Each film explored a different side of him: God, man, symbol, alien. And then came the Elseworlds. What if Superman had landed in the Soviet Union instead of Kansas? That was Superman, Red Sun. What if he was raised by Mexican immigrants? That was Justice League, Gods and Monsters. These stories proved Superman wasn't just one story. He was an idea, adaptable to any era, any culture, any political landscape. Most recently, Superman has returned in Justice League Action, a fast-paced comedic take, and My Adventures with Superman, a light-hearted, anime-inspired series. In the latter, Clark is young, awkward, falling in love, and discovering who he is. It's Superman redesigned for Gen Z, proof that every generation rediscovers him anew. And through all of it, one truth stands. Superman always reflects us. In the 1940s, he was a soldier. In the 1970s, a moral guide. In the 1990s, a conflicted but noble protector. In the 2000s, a warning against unchecked power. Today, he is once again a young dreamer, reminding us that hope is never outdated. Why does Superman endure in animation? Perhaps because he is more than the strongest hero. He is the most symbolic. He could conquer the world, but chooses instead to save it. He could rule us, but chooses to guide us. He doesn't have to believe in us, but he does. The animated history of Superman is not just about cartoons. It's about a cultural beacon refracted through decades of change. He has been redrawn, reinvented, even doubted. Yet whenever he takes flight, whether in a 1940s theater short or a streaming series today, we look up. Because deep down, we don't just need Superman, we need what he represents. The hope that no matter how dark things seem, someone will rise above it. And maybe, just maybe, that someone can be us.